Hey guys, Diddy Kong here, back with another— wait, I don't introduce my videos like that, what the— Ladies and gentlemen, allow me to introduce the Flame of Unity, a countdown creator and, as of recently, commentator, who previously just did kind of a reaction video thing, which isn't exactly the same, but, you know, whatever. He's covering someone who has turned into a bit of a bandwagon for some reason, Meta257II. Oh, wait, that's right. Bop did a commentary on then. And since half the commentary community worships Bop like they're somehow all Jesus at the same time, people decided meta bad, we'd go do com on vid now. At least it's not that killjoy list they did, so maybe I'll bring up something new and relevant? Let's get started.
Hey everyone here, it's the Flame of Unity here speaking, and today, as much as I don't want to, I'm going to be doing a commentary on Meta's most recent list, Top 10 Least Favorite Video Game Villains.
Okay, so the first thing of note is the visual here. I mean, the camera's pretty blurry, which I'm willing to admit is not something that's necessarily under your control, but something that is under your control is how you can't look towards the camera to save your life and are blatantly reading from your script, which, honestly, considering the guy you're doing a commentary on doesn't even use any visual to indicate himself, likely because his physical acting skills are piss poor, and commentaries have this concept known as avatars that you can use, I'd say you have options other than this that you should really explore in the future. Because, seriously, why are there all those clothes stacked up like that in the corner? It's bugging the hell out of me.
I'm going to go by several things here. One, I'm going to try to follow an established script for this one, seeing as how the last two commentaries worked out, with just unscripted messes.
One of those videos was basically a reaction video, which I would say didn't need a script, and one of those videos was more of a DVD commentary, which I think would have been weaker with a script, based on what you were doing. Of course, if that wasn't the intention, maybe you should have had a better game plan going into those videos, but good on you for using a script this time.
And second, I'm going to try a more professional approach to this. Now with that said, let the commentary begin.
You know, you already explained that you were using a script, so you don't necessarily need to elaborate what you mean by professional in this particular instance. Whatever, I'm just glad he got started. Flame? You there? Did you fall asleep? Oh, there you are.
Okay, this should really be a bit obvious, but as you know, my countdown theater intros, unless they are made short and simple to the point, will just get a little bit boring after say 30 seconds or so, and Meta approaches the 30-second mark. There's nothing technically wrong with it. I mean, the footage is actually really good quality compared to mine. But to be brutally honest, I prefer that the intro was shorter and more professional looking.
Okay, then why isn't yours more professional looking? For that matter, what do you mean by more professional looking? I mean, if Meta's stuck with Windows Movie Maker, I wouldn't really know. I'd say he did a pretty good job. And if we're really going on how professional our intros look, yours has far too small of text when you put your name on screen, and the music is somewhat out of sync with the beginning. If that was intentional, maybe a sound effect would help so that I don't notice that it's off sync?
Now you wouldn't hurt a lady, would you?
Some villains in the Kirby universe seem to only be there because they ran out of villain ideas. But it seems like the only one out of them that is entirely unoriginal is Dark Nebula.
Okay, for the number 10 segment, first off, try to speak up a little bit more. I have to turn my volume up to like 18, 19 just to be able to hear you properly.
18 or 19? Okay, out of what? If it's on a scale from 0 to 100, then I actually used to have a TV that used that scale, and yeah, that was about the volume level I used, generally speaking, so that doesn't come as a shock to me. But if it's like out of 20, then sure, that might be a bit too quiet. A bit of elaboration that someone other than you will actually be able to use as a reference would be nice, okay? Thanks.
And we haven't even gone to the actual meat of the number 10 segment yet, the Kirby villain. Now, I will admit, I have not played this game, nor have I played any other Kirby game as of yet. Shame on me. And we haven't even gone to the actual meat of the number 10 segment yet, the Kirby villain. Now, I will admit, I have not played this game, nor have I played any other Kirby game as of yet. Shame on me. But I will admit, it does a good job explaining the villain's backstory. And yes, unlike some other villains on the list, some of these villains actually do have backstories, so at least they're at least somewhat decent.
Are you just gonna explain what he's saying instead of saying it yourself? Also, gee, it's almost like he put it at number 10 because he didn't dislike it as much as the others!
But to be brutally honest, this segment fails not because I haven't played Kirby, well, partially because I haven't played a Kirby game, really.
The segment fails because you haven't played the game. That's not how that works.
But it fails for just one reason. The elaboration. I mean, he likes to fight and all, but he likes to fight, and there's at least a bit of a backstory for this villain, but I don't know. Something about the entry just throws me off.
It fails because I don't know! Well, fuck me running! We got a winner on our hands!
I'm sure that if I experienced this game myself, I would at least be able to partially agree with him on the entry. And I still do partially agree with him on the entry. I just think that, given the circumstances and the fact that he likes the villains, to an extent, I just think that he should be off the list personally, but that's just my opinion.
Once again, number 10 is allowed to be a distant number 10. Hell, I don't even fully disagree with this point, but he even hints that the number 10 is distance from the other 9 entries at the end.
Okami had two primary villains, a giant 8-headed dragon named Orochi, and the root of all evil known as Yami.
Oh dear God, help me here. Okay, I will give you this much, Meta. You were correct about Yami being the root of all evil and the symbolization of mankind's evil. But you were wrong about Orochi in one aspect. Orochi is technically an 8-headed snake serpent thing, not a dragon. Besides, if it were technically a dragon, it would have mechanical wings and be able to breathe fire.
What? Mechanical wings? No. Never mind the fact that Chinese and Japanese dragons don't have wings. Never mind the fact that there have been dozens of depictions of dragons in media that don't always breathe fire. What traditional Western dragon has mechanical wings? Also, here's a picture of Orochi, specifically Orochi from Okami. I mean, yeah, he represents a snake god in Japanese mythology, I get that, but dude, looking at what we see in the actual game, that's a dragon.
Learn your mythology, Meta!
That's funny, I could say the same to you. And to Capcom for that matter. Seriously, you didn't have the balls to make your snake god be an actual snake?
So what do we get in the sequel? A dark eyeball with teeth buried in a pile of purple throw-up. His role in the plot isn't all that memorable, and unlike Orochi and Yami, who had some pretty intense build-up for half the game, Akuro seems like he only appeared because they needed a villain, and because of that he just comes off as plain forgettable. At least Dark Nebula had a memorable Daroche fight. Orochi was memorable for being very intimidating, Yami was memorable for his epic final battle, and Akuro was memorable for, what was he memorable for?
Okay, if you feel bad for the villain after defeating him and finding out why he was doing what he was doing, then doesn't that technically make a good job of him being a villain?
Not the question! I know plenty of villains that become sympathetic after they're defeated, which I will not list here because spoilers, but he said the villain wasn't memorable, which, likely indicates that he probably didn't even find... Akuma? Wait, no, he's from Akuro? That was it. Yeah, probably didn't even find him sympathetic.
I mean, they pull the tragic backstory cliche and brainwash cliche so many times throughout the stories, as in many other games and novels.
Which is probably why he felt like What's-His-Face wasn't memorable? Wait, who are we talking about again?
But to be brutally honest, Koro just doesn't seem to fit as a villain for this list. It just doesn't seem to qualify given what I believe a villain to be. I believe a villain to be a monster who has no redeeming qualities, is completely monstrous, has no regard for innocent life, and is generally never given any chance at any sort of redemption.
Okay, no, stop. You do not get to judge this list based on criteria that you literally just made up. Also, let's look at the actual definition of villain. Oh wait, I don't even have to! The literal definition of villain is an antagonist. In fact, all of these factors combined mean that the only thing that can be a good villain is some eldritch abomination, and thus anyone with any real motivation cannot be seen as a villain in your twisted view of storytelling. And yes, this is the point that downright pissed me off. You can't just attach your own criteria to somebody else's points, unless you're using something other than your opinion as a basis. Oh, and for anyone who wants to say I'm doing the same thing, making up your own criteria for what counts as something with no logic other than it being your own opinion is not a good way to debunk what someone else thinks qualifies because they have a different opinion from you. See? I just used logic to explain my stance. Is that so hard?
Given these opinions I have stated, there I go stating my opinion as fact again.
Yeah, you know what you're doing is completely asinine, and you continue doing it throughout the commentary.
Akuro should not qualify for the list either. But that's just my opinion personally. So already we have 2 out of the 10 villains ineligible for the list, given my criteria.
Wait, weren't we just talking about Akuro? So, no, it's not even 2 entries that don't qualify. It's 1, by your twisted definition of what a villain is. So, you're not even judging this video fairly by your own criteria. Also, the fact that you couldn't remember that we were just talking about Akuro kind of indicates that Akuro is not very memorable.
And I have a feeling this is gonna get worse from here.
My sentiments exactly about your video.
Personally, I think that the Subspace Emissary gets a lot more hate than it deserves, but I'll admit that the final boss was something that they should not be proud of. He's just some strange data-like man with evil powers. Pretty much nothing else about his actual character. At least Master Hand showed some anger, but Taboo has no emotion whatsoever. Also, he isn't even mentioned until the end of the game.
Hold it! Play meta's criteria.
Because I can't find 10 terrible villains that are the main antagonists, they don't have to be the main villain, but they have to play a big role in the plot, so no random final bosses like Necron.
So, this entry doesn't even count. Whatever, I'm jumping ahead of myself and actually kind of doing a commentary on Meta's video. I'm sure Flame's gonna bring that up. Speaking of which, where the hell is he? Did he get lost in the clothes pile again?
I can understand if a villain isn't seen until the final fight because it leaves you thinking, wow, I wonder what this guy will be like. But Taboo literally appeared out of nowhere, repelling both Master Hand and Ganondorf. Because of that, we didn't get to fight either of them in the Subspace Emissary. Nope, I'm not playing that overused song. I would excuse this if he had some actual personality, but he doesn't. I know he was meant to be a last-minute reveal villain, but I didn't find him to be that much of a likable one at that. Also, how is he able to cast a force field to repel both Ganondorf and Master Hand, but he can't use it to repel Sonic? I don't get it.
About Taboo, well, he's actually kind of right about Taboo. No, seriously, he doesn't really have much of a backstory, he doesn't really have much of a backstory or anything.
You wait a full fucking minute to say anything. And all you have to say is you agree. But then you put brown text on the screen, the majority of which is difficult to read due to the clashing with your shirt. And it debunks you, who is talking, by saying that a wiki says he's the mastermind of the subspace emissary. Something that was obvious from the fact that he's the final fucking boss, and still isn't even so much as hinted at in the story of the game. I'll be right back.
I know I said I don't want anything to do with Sonic Boom Rise of Lyric ever again, but I have to bring it up in order to put Lyric on the list. I mean, how did we go from a giant water beast that destroyed an entire city to an evil demon that's probably the Sonic equivalent of the devil himself and can set the entire world on fire within minutes, to a creature that can bend the very fabric of time, to this weird lizard thing?
Okay, I'm skipping this entry for two reasons. One, I haven't played any of the Sonic Boom games at this point in time. And frankly, Lyric came from a spin-off of the Sonic franchise. A spin-off!
This is going to bite you in the ass later. Also, the fact that it's a spin-off doesn't really change the fact that he's a piss-poor villain who pales in comparison to even the Deadly Six.
Grima from Fire Emblem Awakening is, simply put, one of the most unoriginal villains in gaming in my opinion. Let's look at his name, Grima. That's one of the most ridiculous villain names I've ever heard. And then there's his lack of personality. This wouldn't bother me so much if he had something to make up for it, but he doesn't. And his concept is cliched as all heck because it's been done like dozens of other times. An evil dark dragon that's being resurrected.
Examples. Yeah. Like, for instance, your examples earlier of what villains would fit your criteria. Oh, wait, you don't provide any. Or like your examples of what a professional-looking intro should look like. Wait, you don't provide that either. Yeah, when the pot calls the kettle black, somebody comes off as a racist.
Well, you fight on top of a dragon, which is kinda cool, but that doesn't make up for it. And
Since Grima from Fire Emblem Awakening was the first Fire Emblem villain I fought, I have a bit of a strong bit of nostalgia for it.
Admitting that you're biased! Now let's hear some actual logic behind your points for once, please.
I mean, he's a corrupt version of the playable character. Now granted, it would make a good evil copy for the evil copies list that Tree's Apprentice made if this video were made only a couple years later, but I digress. Grima was a good villain. I like how he used Valadar for his selfish motives, let his end to become whole. And I like his monstrous dragon-like appearance. Not to mention the fight right on top of him, yes, you're actually fighting on top of Grima instead of against him, is pretty freaking cool, and it has the awesome ID Purpose soundtrack to go with it.
Hey! You actually managed to talk about why you think this entry is wrong, citing specific positives about something he saw as an overall negative. It doesn't really debunk his point, as the evil clone thing is, you know, part of the whole cliche thing he was talking about, but at least you presented a counter-argument of some kinds. Hey guys, I think there may be some—
The only thing that would make him a bit of a bad villain, in my opinion, would be is if he relied on infinitely respawning minions and... Oh, right, I forgot. He does rely on infinitely respawning minions. Ay. But does that make him a bad villain? No, it actually makes him a formidable opponent.
Wait, so the thing you just said could make him a bad villain doesn't make him a bad villain, but instead makes him a good villain.
Actually, scratch that. Grima wouldn't be eligible for this list, since he does a good job at being a really good villain. Well, given the qualifications I mentioned earlier.
So, because he meets your qualifications, he shouldn't be on the list. But people who don't meet the qualifications you set also shouldn't be on the list. Fail!
And as a result, Grima is ineligible for the list as well. Well, given my criteria that I stated earlier. So there's 3 candidates that are ineligible for the list. The only candidate so far that has done a good job of being eligible for the list was Lyric. I haven't played Sonic Boom as of yet, but now I'm just repeating myself.
Which is why you left it in the video. Are you sure you used a script?
what? But Dr. Wily is awesome. How could he be on the list? Well, to me, he was awesome. but as the series went on, he became less and less threatening. He's always the main villain of every classic Mega Man game. But wait, what about Bowser? Doesn't he suffer from the same problem? Yes, but there's a difference. Bowser may not be exactly the greatest villain out there, and he may do the same thing most of the time. He at least does it with something interesting about it.
Okay, I agree with you on one thing. Bowser does indeed suffer the same problem as Dr. Wily. But here's the key difference though. Bowser goes about his plans in different interesting ways, and in some instances, his plans can actually be a threat to Mario.
Well, no shit. I wish he would have said that. Oh wait, he did. And yes, you corrected yourself a few seconds later. Cut out the fucking point entirely then.
In nearly every game starting out with Mega Man 4, they always tried to mislead us into thinking there would be a different villain, only for it to turn out to be Dr. Wily again. I would be okay with this, but again, nearly every Mega Man game after the 4th installment has this situation, making it get increasingly obvious, dull, and repetitive.
But Dr. Wily is still a frightening villain. I mean, he uncovered Raw Boon and used him to his advantage in the Super Adventure Rockman game, kidnapped a future version of Mega Man and convinced his future self to team up with him to create future Mega Man, aka Quint, which led to the events of Mega Man 2 on Game Boy, which in turn led to the events of Rockman and Forte, Challenger from the Future, which is a sequel to the original Mega Man in Base, released for the Wonder Swan in Japan. So try telling me that Dr. Wily is not an awesome villain. Try telling me that with that knowledge.
But those games you listed where Dr. Wily did all that stuff, those are spin-offs. All of them. Say, didn't you try to get onto him for talking about Lyric because of the fact that Sonic Boom is a spin-off? That's weird. It's almost like you are a hypocrite!
Like I said in my top 10 games I love and hate list, Team Flare is completely unoriginal in my opinion because of their cliched motivation of destroying all humans to make the world a better place. And it just so happens that this game is led by Lysandre. Before making the list, I was confused if I should put him on here or not because I didn't want to risk getting too much hate mail. But then I realized, you know what, this is my list. I can put whatever villain I want on here as long as it qualifies. His goal is to make the world more beautiful. Is that the best he could come up with? His design may not be as stupid as most Team Flare members, but I know for a fact that I am not alone when I say that I knew he'd be the leader of Team Flare the instant I first saw him. But the fact that his name shares some similarities with the word Flare, his uniform, his hair color, and how he desires to make the world a better place, just like the team leaders of the past 3 generations. So when he revealed himself as a true villain, it came off as no surprise. If you think about it, in the live version, his goals are hypocritical. He wants to kill everyone in the world so it'll stay beautiful. The world can't stay beautiful if everything in it is dead. And all plant life would die off without any Pokemon or people around to give them carbon dioxide. So his plan to make a beautiful world would only make a hideous wasteland. By the way, when he gives you a chance to stop and make you press the right button, I knew that the blue button would be the one I have to press. Guys, don't make a button you want me to press be the same color your team wears. I felt pity for him when he died, but as a villain he's quite generic compared to most Pokemon villains.
Okay, coming off of Team Plasma from Pokemon Black and White, its 5th generation, and the evil that is Ghetsis, Lysander is indeed a bit, but that doesn't make him any less effective. I mean, Lysander has seen and heard of the destruction that the Kalos region went through. He believes that, and he does bring up a very good point about how humans are selfish, greedy creatures, driven by selfishness and greed.
You're still repeating yourself. Stop it. Also, how does calling humanity selfish make him not a carbon copy of every single villainous team leader from Generation 3 onward? Which is exactly the problem Meta had with him.
I did not find Beldum to be very good as a villain. Sure, she was the one who manipulated Grodus into resurrecting the Shadow Queen, and the one who tricked Peach into getting kidnapped, but other than that, she pretty much has no other impact on the story other than appearing in random points of Thousand Year Door. And even when she did, her plans usually failed because of her own Butterfinger's stupidity. I know that Beldum was more of a manipulative villain, but one of her goals is to steal the crystal stars from Mario, and she only attempts to do that in a few of the chapters. And then her design. She's one of the most repulsive things I've ever seen in the Mario franchise.
Yeah, I believe it was... No, I'm just gonna call him Bell. Bell, from Paper Mario The Thousand Year Door, doesn't really do a good job of being a villain under normal Mario conditions.
I'm sorry, are you agreeing with him, or saying that they don't qualify for the list because of your goddamn made-up criteria?
However, most of Mario's villains don't really have an established backstory. So, I think Belle has an awesome backstory. Possibly being created by the Shadow Queen, she was tasked with resurrecting her. And so she set up the events of Paper Mario's conflict with the X-Naut Society.
You know what? I just noticed something. Even when he's making good points, they rarely have anything to do with what meta is even saying. It's just, here's good aspects of this villain. Of course he's going to chiefly highlight the bad stuff. It's a list of the worst of something!
That's genius. That would show that one side would get all the crystal stars and be foolish enough to unlock the 1,000-year door, and then use that power to release the Shadow Queen. Now granted, there were some minor hiccups along the way, such as Dupless, who would arguably be more eligible for this spot instead.
Yeah, keyword there is arguably, and, I'd actually argue against that, since Dupless's plans were actually more effective, including taking over Mario's body. Dupless is a much better villain than Beldum, who feels like a background player at best during the majority of the game. The same way that Meta felt about her.
And not in an intimidating way like Ganondorf, or in a classic way like Gruntilda. Grima was more intimidating than her. Also, I can see that she tortures Vivian because the game wants us to feel sorry for her. And while I'll admit I did feel sympathy for Vivian, Beldum is essentially a villain that's supposed to be halfway between serious and funny, and the way she presents this doesn't really blend really well together. She does give some character to some of the characters around her, but it doesn't do much for her own.
Really, Meta? Really? I seriously cannot follow along with what you just said. Can you put it in more simpler terms that even a layman with a disability like me could understand?
She adds to the characters around her, but has very little in terms of her own character development. There. Does that help at all?
Xande may have been a lame villain, but number 1 does such a terrible job at being a villain that just thinking about her makes me lose a tiny bit of faith in the franchise. That is Lady Maud from The Legend of Zelda Triforce Heroes.
Lady Howard, eh? Really?
Also known as the Lady. I mean, just look at the villains in the previous Zelda games. We have a power-hungry ruler who took over all of Hyrule, a demonic mask that possessed the moon and then sent it on a collision course towards the planet, a deranged psychopath, and an evil dictator. So what should we have here? How about a witch who's all like, "Oh, look at me, I'm so stylish!"
The Zelda series has had dark villains and dark plots for ages. What the hell is wrong with a little lightheartedness every now and then?
And has literally no redeeming villain qualities with a lack of involvement with the story for most of the game.
I mean, the thing he just said might be a problem. Also, there's a difference between lighthearted and stupid. And hey, maybe he just plain doesn't like lighthearted villains. By the way, if we go by your criteria, the only types of villains we can have are the dark ones, since those are the only ones that can be complete monsters. Yeah, I know I called his criteria bullshit, but when he's going against it himself...
That is not how a Zelda villain should be. Zelda villains are supposed to be intimidating.
What is wrong with having a lighthearted Zelda villain and a lighthearted Zelda game? Just... what is the problem with that? I mean, Wind Waker was technically lighthearted, and Ganondorf was given a bit of a lighter backstory to make him seem a bit like a lighter villain, but it worked. It made Ganondorf into a somewhat tragic villain.
Who was still a villain and didn't feel like a comedic side act. Granted, you could try to argue that this entire game is a comedic side act, which, for sorts, your argument is invalid. And as for this text right here, if you thought Bellum was a lighthearted villain, you need a new definition of the term lighthearted. And who the fuck is Mateus? If you mean Maladus, then no. Like I said, none of these other villains are complete and utter jokes with zero intimidation factor to them whatsoever.
That's just completely stupid compared to most Zelda villains.
He is innocent.
Okay, Meta. As a total Iwata joke was in absolutely poor taste. You do not, even through text, insult a dead man. Even in a joking manner.
He didn't insult the dead. He said that he could imagine Satoru Iwata not liking his interpretation of Triforce Heroes. Also, there's a big difference between death threats to the family of someone that died and calling someone a bad person and saying that they're rolling in their grave because you're harshly criticizing one of their creations.
Any respect I had for you, any respect I had for this list, is completely shot for the window now. That respect that I had for you in this video is completely gone.
You didn't have any respect for this video to begin with. You're not fooling me. All you've done during this entire video is push your own agenda onto it. A criteria that you're pushing onto this video, which, as you stated, is not based on facts, but based on solely your own opinion. A criteria that seems to shift back and forth to fit your needs for disqualifying entries. Going from someone being disqualified because they don't meet your criteria, to being disqualified because they do, to being disqualified just basically because you disagree with him. And then there's the death thing. You're the only one who's using death as a punchline. All he did was say that Satoru Iwata wouldn't like the criticism that his game is receiving, which isn't exactly an insult to Iwata, but rather an insult to himself. He did not use death as a punchline like you admitted to doing, but simply mention the name of someone involved in the game's creation who is deceased. My advice is simple. Stop shoving your opinions down people's throats and learn how to take a joke. You know, like something Iwata would want you to do.